turning the tide, we have a shift in the relative flow state, where we're moving towards the upward performance spiral as he moves towards the downward performance spiral. That turning of the tide is characterized by three different attributes: power, control, and timing. Let's take these words in context to what we've already discussed with the performance spiral. Power is the ability to appropriately designate your awareness to meet the circumstantial performance needs. Control is the ability to fix your awareness in that domain so that it remains regimented, fixed in place for the appropriate level of awareness for your physical activity. And timing is the ability to shift back and forth appropriately between the circumstantial performance needs. Like if when we see what we're working today, we're going to shift from attention to intention back to attention, meaning we're going to have a broad external focus, and we're going to switch whenever a target presents itself. We're going to narrow our focus, address the target, and switch back to our broad needs. Our ability to shift the focus or turn the tide will be based upon three genres of cues: kinesthetic, visual, and cognitive. Those three combined determine our ability to accommodate whatever information is being given to us. We're going to begin with visual cues. If I can use mic. It's going to be a little more obvious when we have more than one attacker. But when we're just addressing a one-on-one situation, from here in a hand-to-hand fight with, you stay in your guard, when we are encountering a one-on-one situation, our visual input needs to be directed deliberately by us. We have two channels in our visual cues: a foveal cone and a peripheral cone. Our foveal cone is what narrows our focus. Like if I were to stare at him eye to eye, my emotional arousal's going to shoot through the roof because I've taken my concentration, I've narrowed it, and the emotional sympathy between the two of us eye to eye is going to start to internalize my concentration, narrow my focus, and I'm going to be shifting my awareness. This is a great battle of wills that comes eye to eye. If we want to address the actual situation, we want to turn our foveal cone away from any emotional engagement and nonverbal cues, such as facial calibration, spatial relationship, gestural, and postural cues. All those combined, that nonverbal information which accommodates 70% of communication, we have to suspend and bracket by turning our foveal cone away from the actual opponent so that we don't have any emotional arousal with him. The best way to do that is to shift off about 15 degrees. Our peripheral vision is what addresses movement. If something is in our peripheral vision, we can actually address it without any cognitive interaction, without conscious effort like we talked about before. It's our peripheral vision that gives us pre-conscious processing. So we want to take the foveal cone just off. Some people say to stare at the middle of the solar plexus, other people at the hips, other people in between, some people above the head. Whatever your natural inclination to do is, that's what you should follow. Personally, I like to just be off center. I'll look at either one side or the next depending on which direction that I'm going. If I'm going this direction, to the left, I might stare in that direction, switch to the right, just to lead him a little. If you stare at a weapon, thanks. If you stare at a weapon, like if you, come back in here, Mike. If I'm going to be coming down to kick the leg, if I stare at it, he knows it. All right, I'm leading him with a nonverbal facial calibration. If I turn my foveal cone just off center and I process everything that's going on here as these blows are coming in, now we can start to address, and the speed starts to pick up because your actual processing is pre-conscious. You're not looking at it, accessing a target, looking for an opportunity, or trying to create an opportunity and apply an ability. This becomes more obvious when you have two attackers. You don't have to put your hands up. I'm not going to fist fight 2-on-1. But if you have two attackers, you can't concentrate on either one. The mind can only address one thing at a time. So you want to turn your foveal cone into an appropriate designation so that you're not concentrating on anything and so that you can continue. Okay. With your nonverbal access to information, you have to take movement at a broad external or attention, and that requires you to move it to your peripheral vision. Kinesthetic cues are what we'll address next. Kinesthetic cues we've already mentioned with somatosensory stimulation, but now it's being applied to us. There are three characteristics to that: mechanoreception, proprioception, and nociception. Let's think of these in terms of the detection of alignment, the detection of structure, and the detection of integrity. Just a regular clinch. Okay. If we're tied up in a neutral position, if he pulls down on my elbow over here, already the natural reflex in my mechanoreception, go ahead, pulls me to reaccommodate. That's a kinesthetic cue for me, if you follow me on this. Proprioception would be if he pulls my elbow up as if he were coming underneath to get round back position. As soon as I feel my elbow moving upward, I need to either move with the force or, go ahead, brace against the force and change level. So proprioception is feeling the change in structure, where mechanoreception is feeling the change in balance or alignment. Nociception is feeling when there is a change in the integrity of a particular joint. Like if he moves my elbow inside, right now I'm in a closed packed position at my shoulder joint. If he pinches his shoulder, your ear. Here, I'm actually in a joint locked position. The breach of integrity, the compromise of the integrity of that particular joint, sends information to my shoulder. What we want to do is take those kinesthetic cues and use them to an advantage, knowing that that is information for us rather than something that's working against us. We want to use the information that's given to us rather than being in our heads, trying to play a cognitive game of, if he moves here, I have to visually access what he's doing, codify that, and know how to release a pre-programmed reaction. We want to go all on kinesthetic information. So when we talk about proprioception, nociception, mechanoreception, these are three different genres of information we're going to be using to detect our bodily alignment in space. Just so that we can use the realm of hand-to-hand fighting as a micro version of the macro interest for combat value. When we talk about cognitive cues, we're talking about the difference between procedural versus declarative statements, internal dialogue. A declarative statement would be, this sucks, this hurts, I'm pissed off, I feel overwhelmed, he's moving too fast, or outcome-based thoughts that can be, I need to end the fight, I need to beat him, I need to hit him, I need to get the throw. All of these declarative comments take us away from the actual process. And we've heard the term, a process over product. If you feel yourself going declarative, you have to change to a procedural internal dialogue. With a process-oriented statement, you have performance goals that have been given to you by your coach. For instance, wrist end down. Press his wrists down to the ground. You can't think, I have to grab here, move to a 2-on-1, come in. You can only program one performance goal at a time, because you can only concentrate, you can only give yourself one cognitive imperative, one directive at a time. Your prime directive should be your overall strategy for that engagement. Wrist end down, or heavy down, the heavy side down, these performance goals will start bringing you back into the process of the actual engagement. Angry thoughts, frustrated thoughts, fearful thoughts start you in the downward performance spiral. So we have to make a shift even towards comments that are not, even neutral comments will start you getting that emotional arousal if they're declarative of a process. So shift away from, you get slugged, that sucks. As soon as your attention goes down here, the shorter the time is from you directing your intention, narrowing your focus to that information and going back to a broad external awareness, the faster that recovery time is, the less you start going declarative. The more that you're stuck in the declarative, the more you start spinning down the vortex. So this overview summary is to conclude that visual, kinesthetic, and cognitive cues all add to distractibility or indistractability. If they begin to distract you, take you off track, then your emotional arousal is going to shoot. If your emotional arousal starts to increase, it starts to blow your concentration even more. You get psyched out. If that starts to happen, you're on the downward performance spiral. You're heading into the vortex, and your performance starts to be adversely affected. So think of your cognitive, kinesthetic, and visual cues as a way to increase your indistractability, your ability to remain focused. Remember what we said, that the power is the ability to appropriately designate your awareness. Control is the ability to keep it there when it's needed, and timing is the ability to flip in and out, seamlessly transition between the appropriate focus and concentration for that performance need. To take what information we've explored so far and apply it into a dynamic realm, we're going to be working on a slipping drill. The slipping drill's purpose is to work on the culmination of accessing our kinesthetic, nonverbal, visual, and our cognitive cues. When we're working the slipping drill, the goal is to take that kinesthetic information, to take that visual information, and to take the cognitive information and not become emotionally aroused, or to try and diminish how much arousal affects performance, which is more important. When we have the emotional arousal, our concentration starts to narrow. When we say that you're going to be increasing intensity, think about that, intensity and tension. As you increase intensity, your muscles will naturally start to become more dense. Your breathing rate and your heart rate will start to increase, which can adversely affect your concentration, and that starts you on the downward performance spiral. What we have to do is recognize the recovery process. Whenever we start to feel our heart rate, our breathing rate, or our muscles tighten, we're going to what? We're going to use our strategy. We're going to depolarize, we're going to equalize, and we're going to mobilize. Depolarize meaning keeping the solar and lunar plexus moving. As we move, we're going to equalize the pressure in our body. We're only going to focus on exhalation. And mobilize, once our body's moving, that should be tied with the application of our appendages. If our body moves this way, then we throw. We don't move and try and apply a technique. If your body's moving, everything should be tied together, and it should be simultaneous, depolarizing, equalizing, and mobilizing. Last point. We're going to be working incrementally from soft work to hard work. In soft work, we are able to maintain soft eyes, broad, narrow concentration and focus. Our awareness is where it needs to be, because there's very little emotional arousal. We can take our foveal cone off center and not become fixated when something gives us that discriminatory touch. As we start increasing intensity, what happens? We get the hard eyes, the spaghetti western eyes. Hard eyes are where you're looking for a target, you're looking to create an opportunity to apply one of your techniques. The goal of this drill is to work incrementally from soft work to hard work so that we can maintain soft eyes in hard work. That's the ultimate goal. That analogy gives us the power to work, the ability to choose our concentration appropriately, to keep our timing so that when an opportunity happens, you can apply a movement integrating your structure, alignment, and breathing appropriately at that moment when it happens instantaneously. Remember, speed isn't fast enough, fast isn't soon enough, you have to be instant. So Sean and Mike are just going to give us an example of this to begin. They're going to be working soft work. Go ahead. Now I'm going to keep on narrating. The goal in soft work is to keep those soft eyes, to keep moving, to keep breathing. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to call switch. When I call switch, that's the important part. The switch is when you turn the tide. You're shifting your focus. Switch. Now, did you see the pause? It's a natural pause that happens because of the lack of programming. When we're not used to this type of drill, we're not used to shifting the flow, turning the tide. That's more important than any of the particulars that are happening right now. Shift, switch. Work back in center. It's going to become increasingly more difficult as we start to work towards hard work. Okay, guys, thanks. Now, what I want you to focus on is when we give the next demonstration, all we're going to do is call switch. Every time that you switch in this slipping drill, what you're going to be doing is increasing intensity by 10%. Intensity. It's necessarily going to be challenging because you're going to have a change in physiological arousal, a change in emotional arousal, and a shift in concentration. Shifting from attensity to intensity, if you follow me. From attention to intention. You have to keep on working on broadening and externalizing your awareness so that you can accommodate all of the variables. Don't let yourself get spaghetti westernized and start fixating on what technique's going to happen. Also, you have to keep your concentration focused on cognitive cues that are procedural rather than declarative. If you're thinking, the camera's on me, I don't want to screw up and not impress all the girls that are watching. Well, you've come to an outcome-based internal dialogue. You have to keep it based on process. You have to keep on working on nothing else matters but allowing all of this to happen. Pre-conscious processing.